Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Ms. Bradshaw's American History class. Thank you so much for watching the video. This is going to be the first public video because this is content that many people could benefit from. This is intended for my students or any students to look back on. Now, for my students, enduring issues is going to be one of the most important lessons for the year. We're going to talk about enduring issues today. I'll tell you all about what they are. We are going to use enduring issues on nearly every project, definitely every test, and on little assignments throughout the year and throughout class discussions. So as you enter, remember our norms that we established last time. The warm-up is intended for you to begin as soon as that bell rings. If you're in second block, you can get started on this as the morning announcements go. So I have some excerpt here that says, what is history? Hopefully you have a bit of a foundation of what history is, or perhaps your own definition for it. Feel free to use these quotes to help you decipher what history means to you as well. Now, for my class on Canvas, you're going to see a discussion board with this title, Unit 0, Lesson 2, Enduring Issues Warm-Up. And I want you to write a response simply to this question. Why do different people interpret events from the past differently? If you're watching at home, I want you to take a pause and think about this question. Why do we interpret different events from the past differently? Now, remember last time I asked you to write a letter to me about yourself, just introducing yourself, but the last question I asked you to write about was, how does your identity impact your historical perspective? That question you should be thinking about and tying into this question. So last time we talked about some examples of that. People's age could influence how they view the past. Some people lived through the past events where others see them as the distant past, didn't live through them. People's identity can influence how they view the past. People who are very connected to their cultures might have been told stories from their culture that other people don't know about because they're not part of that culture, for example. There are many acceptable answers to this question. I hope we have a good discussion in class about it. Remember, I also have this question of the day. So while you all are working on the warm-up, we'll just go around and instead of doing attendance, I will ask you the question of the day. You're welcome to pass if you would not like to contribute on that day. But my question for today is, who is someone who inspires you? Now, this can be a historical figure. This can be somebody in your life. This can be a fictional character. It'll help us to learn a little bit more about each other and perhaps be a little inspired as we enter this class period. Now, we're going to talk quite a bit about current events. Your activity for today is going to be about current events. So we went through a few current events last time. I really like to save the current events for class because, of course, if you're looking back at this later to study, the current events will not be as relevant later. So we'll go ahead and skip this for the purposes of this video. In this lesson, we went through our warm-up discussion. We're going to do some slides and notes on enduring issues. I'm going to introduce to you this enduring issues project, and then we'll go to an exit ticket. Our question. So this is our first lesson where we have a question over here. From here on out, I'll have a question for you to be thinking about. Sometimes this is going to be your exit ticket question. This is always a pretty essential question, something that you should remember out of the lesson, a big idea from the lesson. Where do enduring issues persist today? So by the end of this video, of this lesson, you should be able to answer this question. Remember that these little thought bubbles are going to be for us to have discussions throughout class. So I'm going to skip them in the video. Hopefully these will be good conversation starters when we're in person together. So let's go to what is an enduring issue. Break that down into the two parts. Enduring means continuing or long-lasting, and an issue is a challenge or problem for debate or discussion. So, put together, an enduring issue is a challenge or problem that has been debated or discussed across time. So let's look at a really simple example. In class, I'll ask somebody to read this out loud, so I'll go ahead and read it out for this video. This comes from a New York lesson. This is not my words. Zach and Sarah are brother and sister. When they were kids, they hated sharing with one another. As a result, their parents bought them separate toys. If Zach got a toy truck and Sarah wanted to use it, he would run away and hide it, and Sarah would complain to their parents until they bought her one of her own. Now, as adults, they still won't share. If Zach needs to borrow Sarah's truck to help with some yard work, she refuses. If Sarah needs a ride to the airport, Zach won't take her. What makes this an enduring issue? This started a long time ago, and it's still happening. This is a conflict that they're continuing to have, a long-lasting conflict. So hopefully this helps you to think of possibly some enduring issues in your own lives. This does not only have to be historical issues, but these can be long-lasting problems that you or other people face in your personal lives. Here's a more historical example of an enduring issue. And that could be that war is used to gain power. So I have some examples of wars here, such as World War I, World War II, the war in Afghanistan. What makes the use of war to gain power an enduring issue? Well, we see wars throughout time. This is a very long-lasting issue, continuing to cause conflict. Here are some phrases you might see as you're trying to identify an enduring issue. Enduring issues could be caused by need for something like fresh water, competition over, for example, fresh water, lack of fresh water, scarcity of fresh water. Or we could have effects of, impacts of, for example, technology, changes in technology, conflict over technology, rejection or acceptance of technology, and threat of new technology. If you see phrases like this, that's a hint you might be looking at an enduring issue. An enduring issue is significant if it is important. Just anything is significant if it's important. So we're looking at the definition of significance right there. We're deciding whether something that is an enduring issue is also historically significant, because those are the ones that we're going to care about for American history class. Something is historically significant if it affected a lot of people and had long-lasting effects. So think about this. Which event is historically significant? Zach and Sarah's inability to share, or the use of violence to gain power? So that's war. Hopefully you're saying war here. War affects a lot of people, has very long-lasting effects, whereas Zach and Sarah's inability to share hopefully only affects them and a few people in their close circle. So now we're going to look at the 9 categories of enduring issues in American history. So these are the categories that you'll get to know very well throughout the year and be able to tie nearly every single American history lesson back to one of these 9 themes. So the first one is conflict. Conflict can be a serious disagreement between individuals, groups of people, nations. Battles, war, protests could fit as examples of conflict. There's a lot of examples of conflict. So we just talked about a few examples of specific wars like World War I, World War II, war in Afghanistan, Vietnam War. Anything like that could be examples of conflict, as well as smaller conflicts that are not quite war, but still affect many people. So we'll have a brief class discussion about that. Next, we have need for or impact of innovation. What is innovation? Innovation is change, a new method or idea. So this is typically inventions or just new ways of doing things. For example, technology. So like the Industrial Revolution would be an example of innovation. Then we have desire for power. Now this can overlap with other examples that we have already gone through. One topic, for example, like let's take World War II. That's definitely an example of conflict. Definitely also an example of desire for power. People are fighting for power over other countries. So some examples, some events might fit into multiple categories. Power is the ability to influence or control other people. So political campaigns, government could be examples of power. Next, we have environmental impact. Environment is just the area we live, how the area we live impacts us. Examples of environmental impact could be like inventions that come out based on where people live, migration patterns. It can also be impacts of natural disasters, like Hurricane Katrina could fit in this category. Next, we have the impact of interconnectedness. Have y'all heard of globalization before? So this is the idea that more and more countries are getting more and more connected to one another, even though they are great distances apart. Interconnectedness, while it's very much increasing due to technology, has been occurring long before the internet existed. So this is relationships between different cultures, between different countries, and how they communicate and interact with each other. So this could be like triangle trade could be an example of interconnectedness. Next, we have scarcity. Scarcity is not having enough of something. We have very limited natural resources, so people trade for them, create economies based on those natural resources. An example of this in American history could be the Trail of Tears. Land was scarce, so unfortunately, the government forced people to move away. All right, here is something that I touched on a little bit. If you are in my class, I'm going to send it to you as a practice multiple choice. The war in Ukraine fits into which of these enduring issues? Conflict, desire for power, impact of interconnectedness, scarcity, or all of these? So I would give you a second to make a guess. Go ahead and pause if you'd like to take a look at home. You could work in the war in Ukraine to any of these topics. Remember that just because it fits one best doesn't mean that if somebody made an argument for a different one, they would be wrong. You just have to back up your answer and use evidence as to why it fits in that particular enduring issue. We have a few more to go through. Next is impact of ideas and beliefs. So this is a pretty vague one. This can be used for a lot of different topics or events. So this is about how ideas and beliefs shape the way people look at the world. So that can include religion, culture, books or information, society, and the ideas that people are talking about. So the American Revolution perhaps would fit well in this ideas and beliefs category, as people began to question the ideas and beliefs of the old world. And our last two are on the same slide together. Next, we have inequity. So this is lack of fairness, where some people have less power than others. And then we have population growth. So population growth is occurring as more people continue to live longer, and the overall amount of people living in a country or in the world is increasing. So now that we know these enduring issues, let's talk a little bit more about what history is. I have some quotes up here from some historians. I'm going to pick out just two of my favorite here. History is a Greek word, which means literally just investigation. So throughout this class, we're going to be investigating these enduring issues throughout history. And history is the memory of things said and done. There's a lot more to history than we will ever know because not everything has a record of it. So I'd like you to think about a definition of history in your own words. Perhaps pick one of these quotes that speaks most to you. Here's another one. History includes every trace of everything that man has done or thought since first appeared on the earth. Every trace of everything. So not everything has left a trace this far in the future. But some things have left a trace, and those are called primary sources. So throughout this class, we are going to be using primary sources rather than textbooks to learn. We'll use some secondary sources as well. Primary sources are really valuable because they are from somebody who actually lived and experienced what they're talking about or discussing. Secondary sources might be interpretations of those primary sources. So we're going to go through just a couple examples here of, is this a primary or a secondary source? Here's one. My friends and I found an old wedding dress in our attic. My father said it belonged to my grandmother. Is this dress a primary or a secondary source? You should say primary. It's from this time period, right in front of you. It was worn a long time ago. Next, we have a letter to one of my friends in the locker room after school. Is this a primary or a secondary source? Primary source. So this is written by someone who has primary source information. All right, here we're going to transition a little bit towards our project. And this project is going to be about current events. So I want you to write down as many current events as you can think of, things that have happened in the world recently. Just think to yourself about it, then we'll talk about it in pairs and share a few as a class. It, of course, wasn't a requirement for you to be keeping up with current events over the summer. So we will help each other, jog each other's memory, and you can easily research a few that strike you after we have some ideas here. Keep those in mind. Hopefully they fit in one of these thematic categories. So we just talked about enduring issues, and enduring issues often go hand in hand with essential questions. So essential question is like that question that I had written out for you at the beginning of, how do enduring issues continue to impact us today? That could be an example of an essential question. So an essential question is typically something that is overarching of that day's lesson, often of the entire unit, and can be applied to multiple lessons. So here are a few things that could be essential questions that I could ask you to feel out your understanding of the topics that we've discussed. So if we have a day that's about environmental themes, maybe I could ask you, how does the environment and geography impact our lives? So you should be able to answer an essential question just with your knowledge right now. You know a little bit about the environment and geography, but perhaps on specific days, maybe we talk about manifest destiny and people moving to the West. Now, the new environment of the West will be impacting the white settlers who are moving there quite differently than their previous homelands in the Eastern United States. Therefore, we can talk more specifically about that, or as broad as just your personal experiences without having that lesson yet. So these are some examples here. So in our class discussion, we'll go through these a little bit more deeply, perhaps connect them to some of the current events that we just discussed. Now here is your current events project. I'm going to ask you to think about a current event. It can be one of the ones we just discussed, or it can be something different. Find a good source on that primary event, a good, strong, credible source. If you're in standard, just one. If you're in my honors classes, I'm going to have you have 2 sources. Write a 2-paragraph summary about what is going on. What's going on with this current event? What's happening? Then I'm going to pick an enduring issue that best captures this current event. My standard classes, I want you to just pick one of those 9 enduring issues we just went over and really make an argument for why that enduring issue best captures the current event that you've chosen to discuss. And that should be your 3rd paragraph. So 2 summarizing, a 3rd about the enduring issue. If you're in my honors class, I want you to pick 2 enduring issues that fit in that article, in that current event that you've chosen to pull some articles from. So remember that a lot of events will fit into more than one enduring issue. So if you're in honors, I want you to pick a current event that you feel could fit into 2 different enduring issues. We'll talk about that a little bit more. This is a bit of what your rubric is going to look like. I want you always for this class to please read your rubrics before you submit a work. Just take a little glance at the rubric, make sure you followed everything. For the purposes of this activity, for this early in the year, I haven't had a chance to teach you about APA citations yet. I want you to just paste the link. Just write, what's the title of the article? Where's it coming from? Paste the link. I don't want you to worry about specific citations quite yet. We'll get into that together. So I have some additional guidelines here about how to summarize your article effectively, how to tie it to an enduring issue effectively. This comes from your rubric. So the rest of the time, I'm going to have you work on your enduring issues project. So again, standard should have 3 paragraphs to submit online. Here's what it's called. Unit 0, Lesson 2, Enduring Issues Project. Honor should have 4 paragraphs that you are submitting. And then when you are done or close to the end of class, I want you to mess around with this 50 states game. Next time, I'm going to assign some fun topics to you guys, and I'm going to let the people who have the highest scores on this 50 states game choose their topics first. So this is just for fun. There is not going to be a formal assessment in my class on the 50 states, but it's great background knowledge. So testing that background knowledge for fun, I will let you choose your topics first for next time. So submit some proof of your best score to this box on Canvas, Unit 0, Lesson 2, Enduring Issues Exit Ticket, and there's a link to the game on there as well. It's from GeoGuessr if you'd like to just find it online. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me on this video. Let's check in class. Thank you.